Welcome to the Invisible Ink podcast, a podcast that traces the lines of extraordinary lives. I'm joined here by Nick Sheppard. Thanks for coming, Nick.
Pleasure, mate.
A man with one such extraordinary life that we'll have a chat about right now. If you'd indulge me for a sec, I'd like to sort of just kick off by saying how the guest came into my orbit.
Yeah, sure.
And in your case, it's because I've been a fan of The Clash for a long time, since the early 90s when I bought the cassette at Bridgetown Television Services, and it steered me clear of Bon Jovi and on a completely different path. And then sometime between then and there, I became aware of this, the mythical member of The Clash that was among us in Perth here, yourself.
That would be me, I think.
Yeah. And since then, I've learned more about you and learned that that's a small part of a big career, a big, long career with lots of notable aspects to it. And I kind of wanted to chat about all of it, really, as much as possible, as much as we can get in.
Yep.
So I've looked you up on the internet. You have a Wikipedia page, which makes my life a little bit easier. Congratulations on that.
I hope it's all real. I hope it's all right.
Are you editing it yourself? Or
No, I don't worry about it.
You're a better man than me. I'd be in there crediting myself for inventing Velcro or something spectacular. So yeah, look, if any of this is inaccurate, mate,
we can put it to rights.
Playing the internet. It's never steered me wrong before, but there's always a first time. So, and according to the interwebs, you were born in Bristol.
Well, there you go.
60s.
No, I was born in Dartford, Kent.
First thing. All right,
go.
I should make notes that we can correct this as we go.
Oh, don't worry about it, man. Yeah.
Right, okay.
I was born in Dartford, Kent, in the same hospital as Keith Richards.
Wow.
A few years after, it must be said. We didn't cross paths.
No? No. He wasn't still in hospital? No. Yeah, no. Okay, wow. Okay, so that's completely incorrect. But were you raised in Bristol?
We moved to Bristol when I was about 5.
Okay, yeah.
And so from the age of 5 to kind of, 18, 19, 20, something like that.
Do you have any memory of when you first became musical?
Well, music was in the house all the time. My dad was what you'd call a modernist.
Okay.
Back in the 50s, he would listen to modern jazz, and he was a big fan of Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, Ornette Coleman. He also, as many modernists did, liked rhythm and blues.
Okay.
So there were blues albums in the house.
Yeah.
So my music was always there, and it was always fun because my dad would kind of play with us in the rhythms of the music and stuff, and it was always fun. My mum liked folk music, so we had sea shanties and Irish rebel songs as well.
That's an eclectic mix.
Yeah.
So you were absorbing that, you reckon?
So all through, for my childhood, it was music was a substantial part of the environment. And I remember being fascinated by pictures of blues musicians like John Lee Hooker. There was a great picture of John Lee Hooker with a big Gibson Switchmaster.
Yeah.
Look it up. And a smart suit and a little hat, and people didn't look like that in the 70s and the late 60s, which would when I would have been looking at these pictures, early 70s, late 60s. Policemen looked like George Best. They all had long hair and sideys. So you'd see a picture of someone like John Lee Hooker or Buddy Guy, or and be like, wow.
Yeah. Otherworldly.
Yeah. And so I was interested in that respect, and the music was part of that interest, I guess. But I mean, my music, the first time I got my music was Mark Bolan, T-Rex.
Right. Yeah.
So that was the first single and the first album that I bought when I was about 12. I bought Electric Warrior.
That's a nice first album to.
Yeah, I still listen to it today. Yeah, it's a fantastic record.
Yeah. Wish I was that cool.
So it's glam rock. Well, a lot of people look at glam rock now and it's all Baker file suits and it's a bit weird, glitter band. But it was a great movement. Even the kind of Chin and Chapman stuff was still exciting, especially when you're like 13, 12, 13, 14. So that was really Mark Bolan, T-Rex. That was my first kind of musical. That was mine.
Yep.
And then, of course, we got into Bowie, and I became a really big fan of Roxy Music.
Right.
They were kind of my team, if you like, you know,
Yep.
barracked for Roxy Music.
Yep.
And back in those days, you know, me and my best mate would go to the record shop. I distinctly remember him buying Aladdin Sane and me buying Stranded. So, and then we took them home and we listened to them both, and then he took his night, and then we'd swap.
Yeah.
And that's how, you know, it worked. And later on, he bought the New York Dolls record, and I bought probably a Dr. Feelgood album, you know, like, so as our tastes evolved and, you know.
Cross-pollinate.
Yeah. Because there wasn't any file sharing, so it was like record sharing. You literally share.
Yeah.
You know, and interestingly, so there's that going on, and then that kind of morphed out. We morphed out of that into a kind of retro 60s thing, where because music was getting very, and even glam, you know, even Roxy Music, who I still love to this day, those first 5 records. It started to get a bit clever, and so somehow we all started, and I would have been about 15, started looking back, because a lot of the stuff that was coming out that wasn't pop, and obviously we're growing up, so we're getting out of pop, was, you know, prog.
Yeah.
And we weren't interested in it. It you know, all these guys that, you know, they look like they're from a different planet, and you know, they played 20 minutes guitar solos. I think Paul Simon later described it as the sound of birds tweeting. Not tweeting, you know, actually making us, you know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Not birds Xing. So we went back and we started listening. There was a great record shop up the road from us, and we started buying Yardbirds records and early Stones records and Beach Boys records and all kinds of soul records, you know, Stax compilations, blues compilations, trying to just. It's weird, but that music spoke to us more than the contemporary stuff.
Yeah.
And it obviously was doing the same thing everywhere in the whole world, you know.
Yeah.
And then there were obviously guys older than us who were doing the same thing, and so pub rock came along, and Dr. Feelgood especially came along, and again, you know, those Dr. Feelgood first three albums, the 2 and the live one, absolutely game changing, because we went from, like, you know, blokes that had come off a spaceship to blokes that looked like they work in a garage selling second-hand cars. Yeah. And you looked at them and you went, oh, I could be them, you know, I know where the op shop is, I could buy that suit.
Yeah.
As opposed to, where on earth do you get those silver trousers from, you know? So, and that really innovated us, and of course at the same time I was learning to play the guitar.
Yeah, I was going to say, was this running sort of same time?
In a lot of ways. My dad, I later found out, had tried to learn the guitar when he was about 18, and he failed to learn the guitar.
Yeah.
So he bought me one when I was 9, and I had some lessons, you know, classical whatever lessons, which I was useless at. I never learned to read music, but I did learn 3 chords. And so later on, I started to play those 3 chords with other guys that knew them, and, you know, we, you know, did, you know, like little school concerts and stuff. And it started, yeah. So by the time I was 15, I would have had an electric guitar by the time I was 15. Yeah.
So it's not long. That's around the period you started the Cortinas. That's 16, 17?
Yeah, about 15. Well, I think probably I was about. I'm pretty sure I would have been 15. Yeah. The Cortinas. I've been in a couple of things before, like another band with the drummer from the Cortinas.
Yep.
Mucking about. I started quite early. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. Yeah, I must have been 15. I must have been, and we were doing, Chuck Berry, rhythm and blues, speed it up, like Dr. Feelgood and Eddie and Hot Rods.
So they were the main influences on the Cortinas.
Dr. Feelgood were the main influence, and that 60s stuff.
Yep.
So we did James Brown songs, we did Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, we did stuff off Nuggets.
Yeah.
Stones, Yardbirds, that and a lot of Chuck Berry and that kind of,
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so you've released a couple of albums with the Cortinas, or the album in 76.
So there was an album. I think the only official, I think the CBS record came out in 78.
78 was it?
Yeah, I could be wrong, but and the two singles would have been 77. So what happened was, in the timeline of things, Cortinas start playing. People like us because we're really young, and we get to do free festivals. We're talking about the 70s here.
Child labour.
Well, yeah, more like hippie labour, really. There was a Bristol had a park called Ashton Court. There was a free festival there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we would play there, on a stage that looked like a pyramid, and before bands called Hengist Pod and things like that.
Would have been pretty exciting as a teenager, though.
Yeah, it was just a thing. It's weird. I've had that conversation before. Yeah. The whole thing, the whole timeline. I just. I don't know. I just kind of reacted. I didn't really. Obviously, I loved it, but I don't. At no point did I go, "Wow, this is really exciting." I just lived it.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
But we were getting gigs in sixth form dances, things like that.
Yep.
And we'd heard about the Ramones, and we bought the first Ramones album, which we loved. But then we went to see them.
Uh-huh.
3 of us went up to London on July the 4th, 1976, and saw the Ramones, the Flaming Groovies, and I think the Stranglers were the third support. And what really did that for us, what really set that off for me, was being in a room with a lot of people, quite a few of whom looked the same as us. They had short hair and straight trousers on. And this was really, we'd heard this word, and we knew that the Pistols and the Clash existed, and we'd kind of seen pictures, and we kind of realised that visually we were in a similar, we're in a ballpark,
Yeah.
Because we had cut our hair, and we're trying to look like the music we played. So we kind of recognised this thing, and then you go in a room and you stand, and there's a lot of other people in there who look, they look better than me. Was a real eye opener, because you realise there are other people that were thinking along the same lines, that you weren't like. This was a movement, even though it didn't have a name, and also, when you saw the Ramones and you saw how clever they were, how sharp everything was, but also how accessible it was, because it really was 3 chords, that you could write your own songs. That was a real, we could write our own songs. And we immediately started writing our own songs and adopting more of a kind of punk attitude, or punk look, punk kind of stance, which kind of, some people would say, okay, you're running on a bandwagon. But the thing is that you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
It's happening, and it was happening all over the world. Like here with the Saints and Radio Birdman, the Ramones in America, Stinky Toys in France. Bands all over the place were doing this thing. It was all kind of just swelling up, and it was kind of inevitable that the idea of looking like if you there was a shop called Boy in London. It was a punk rock clothing store. Before it was Boy, it was called Acme Attractions, and it sold dead stock 60s clothes. So it was just a really natural progression from looking to the past and in a sense adopting the past into taking that idea and moving it into the future. Yeah. So we did that with music, and we did that with the look as well, and that's what everybody was doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So there's no real sense you're sitting in the middle of this burgeoning zeitgeist as such. It's just sort of happening to you.
It's just happening to you,
Yeah.
and I think at 16, 17 you react. You know, like, I mean, if you're proactive at 16, 17, then good luck to you. That's brilliant, because you know, as a teenager and for quite a long time afterwards, I feel that I kind of reacted to things. I wasn't proactive.
Okay.
I was in the middle of it, but yeah, it wasn't. To me, there wasn't a set. I mean, I did see people later on. When we started playing in London, I saw people who you could kind of tell were evaluating the financial possibilities of this.
Of course,
and of course we got signed by people that did that. But, but yeah.
So you were signed by Miles Copeland's label?
Yeah, Step Forward, yeah.
And you were with them for a little while?
Couple of singles, yeah. And I mean, Miles had, I think, well, I can't remember his bands. He was, his brother was in Curved Air, so you know he was a pre-punk, if you like, manager, and he'd been in the music business.
Yeah.
And he was looking for. He didn't have anything going on, and he was looking for something to go on. And obviously, this fell in his lap. He let Mark P. Xerox the Sniffing Glue fanzine out of his offices, and Mark P then started the label with Miles, and he was A&R, so he chose the bands.
Okay, right, yeah.
But Miles then managed us and used those two singles we did to leverage a deal with CBS, now Sony. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Because and you played with the Stranglers in the long after.
Yeah, well, our big break was supporting the Stranglers at the Roxy Club, which was it was the punk venue.
Yes.
Hugh Cornwall had gone to university in Bristol, was back down for a holiday, staying in someone's flat. We bumped into him and we said, we saw you play with the Ramones, and had a chat, and he then sent us a postcard and asked if we'd like to support them.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember my mum saying when I left to go up to London, said, "Don't be too disappointed if they don't like you."
Right. It's probably sound advice, really, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, but turned out not to be necessary.
Had your parents been supportive of your musical pursuit?
No, not really. I mean, yeah, but it's when it started to get serious, and it, interfered with my schooling. I left school a year early. I didn't finish.
Yeah.
That's when I left home.
Yeah. And as a parent yourself now, you could probably relate a bit better, or
I get it. I get it. But
understandable.
Yeah.
You played with Blondie.
Yeah, we supported Blondie in television. That was a fantastic night.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Debbie Harry actually came in the dressing room and talked to us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for about half an hour.
Yeah.
She talked, a wide range of subjects were covered, politics, etc., and we just sat there and went,
as you would. Yeah.
Gazed into her eyes. Yeah.
Late 70s Deborah Harry was certainly something else.
Yeah, but she, very nice people. Yeah.
I agree. Wow. Yeah. And you did a Peel session.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember absolutely nothing about that.
Really?
Nothing at all, no.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. And later on, your single Fascist Dictator actually made Mojo magazine's list of 100 punk scorches.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So you've kind of achieved all of this before 18 or around the age of 18.
Yes. We broke up. When we broke up, I was 18.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive.
We were very. It was, it was a zeitgeist thing. We were, a lot of the music business is about being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So a lot of this, is pure luck, really.
Yeah.
You meet the right people, you make the right noise.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
You've got to have a little something behind it as well, I guess.
Yeah. Look, as I said, there are people in the music industry who are more and I don't mean this derogatory sense. They're more calculating about what they do in that industry.
Yes.
They're the people that end up with more money than I did.
But how do they sleep at night?
Probably very well. Silk sheets.
Yeah. Do you have any remaining connections from that era with
time? Well, with the band members, we're still. Obviously through the magic of social media, we've managed to reconnect completely.
Excellent. Yeah.
Mark P, I've spoken to a bit. There's a couple of other people from, James Stevenson, who was in Chelsea. Who else would there? Just general guys in Bristol that we hung out with.
Yeah, it's nice to carry those relationships through.
Yeah.
The Wikipedia goes a bit dark here. We lose we lose you for a little while, for a couple of years here. Between and I didn't just look at Wikipedia, by the way. So there wasn't a great deal there about what you did in the years between the end of the Cortinas and the Clash thing happening.
A lot. Yeah. So when I didn't stop playing.
Yeah.
Was mucking about in Bristol with some friends. We were in a band called there's a supermarket in England called Tesco's.
Yes, familiar.
So we called the band the Tesco Chain Store Massacre. And that was kind of a really fun kind of New York Dolls-y, knockabout thing. I played in another band called the Spicks that was we played a lot of kind of early soul, New York type soul stuff, wrote our own songs, put a single out, etc.
Yeah.
I moved to America for a while. I spent about 10 months in America. I played there.
What was the impetus behind that?
I had an American girlfriend.
Okay.
I was over there for a while.
Yep.
Came back. Almost immediately started playing with some guys who had been in a band called Pig Bag, who had a big hit in England called Papa's Got a Brand New Pig Bag. So I was playing with them. Another friend of mine. I was doing a lot of playing right up to that 1984 audition.
Yeah.
Reminiscing with a friend of mine last year about this, a guy that I later played with, who said that we were very lucky in the early 80s and stuff. We could afford to be on the dole. We got some rent paid. So we could, and we'd pick up a bit of work here and there and maybe make some money playing, but not really, but we could do that. We live hand to mouth, I guess, but live.
Give you time to hone your chops.
Yes, and do what we wanted to.
Work on the craft.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw a great some English guy, comedian, I think he was saying, the amount of money that the tax department in England has made off rock and roll. Just look at the Beatles.
Yeah.
Were given a couple of years to go to art school.
Yeah.
And they repaid that billions, billion over.
Yeah.
So it works. You give artists time.
Yeah.
And that's what money gives you, and it will repay you.
And if Bono paid tax, maybe Ireland would be
a much better place. Absolutely. But then you see that's an incentive for art in Ireland. It does make sense, and he might not pay tax. But, he's transformed. If you want to talk about U2, they've transformed the Docklands in Dublin.
Yeah.
Completely, yeah. People work there and people make money and they pay tax.
Yeah. The trickle down.
Yeah. So, I was playing, back to I was playing a lot.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot, yeah.
Could you feel your craft improving? You think you're sharpening your skills in that time?
I didn't really think about it. I just, started being, being interested in different areas of music and playing different styles and things, but I don't think I hardly ever practiced, I'm not that guy.
Yeah. Have you always had a broad musical palette like that, or was that expanding sort of in that period?
I think so, yeah. If I look at my record collection, it's pretty pretty inclusive. Yeah.
And that's always bled into your own art as well, do you think? You've always curated with
I think so. Yeah. I find that hard to quantify, but I think so.
Yeah.
There are various elements of the kind of music I listen to that I have kind of noticed.
Yeah.
have been incorporated into my style. Yeah,
just manifesting out.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not really. It's not something I set out to do, but it happens. Yeah, it just happened. Osmosis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fair. Yep.
Yeah.
So then 84 comes. Legend has it that after Mick Jones and Topper were kicked out of the Clash in 83, the band, Joe Strummer and the manager Bernie Rhodes, placed an anonymous advert in Melody Maker to find the replacements, and that you were chosen from around 100 applicants.
Yeah.
Is that
well?
sort of how it went down?
That's not my story.
Okay.
That's true. That's all true.
Yeah.
I was going out with a girl at the time who worked for Mute Records, Daniel Miller's label, whose best friend, one of her best friends, worked for Bernie Rhodes. So she said to me, sorry, I was off my end. Yeah, she said to me, "Do you want to audition for the Clash?"
Right.
I went, "No, I'm busy."
Really?
I got loads on that.
Yeah.
No. She said, "Okay." And then about a week later, I'd organised a rehearsal in Bristol for this band I was playing in, who had ex-members of Pig Bag and a few other people. Some of them lived in Gloucester, a couple lived in London. Bristol was kind of halfway, So we like, okay, none of them turned up, and I went, "Oh, fuck this!" And I rang my girlfriend up and said, "That audition? Yeah, I'll do it."
Right.
So I knew who it was for.
Right.
Which put me at an advantage, definitely.
Yep.
I remember being in a pub having a half before the audition started, and somebody said, "Do you know who it's for?" And I said, "Oh yeah, it's for the Clash," because I hadn't gone through this anonymous ad net. And I said, "Oh yeah, it's for the Clash," and half the pub left immediately.
Yeah, right.
I don't know why. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they just didn't want to be in the. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, that's what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I got rid of them.
Yeah, psyched him out early. Good work. Yeah. What was the actual process like from that point, though?
Oh, so I went into the, what was it, Music Machine, something like that. Went into this club, band room in Camden. There's a Marshall stack, there's a tape recorder, and there's a queue. And I thought, I don't want to go too early, I want to listen to the songs. So I was about 20th. Guys getting up, they turn the tape machine on, they play three different tracks, and you'd play along to them. One was kind of electro-ish, one was kind of New Orleans-y, and one was kind of punky.
Right.
Kind of. So, I'm listening, and I realise that the tape is running fast. So there's a song in F, and there's a song in A sharp, and I'm thinking, I'll tune up. So I tuned my guitar up a step, which meant I could play in the keys that they were actually supposed to be in, which was like E and A and, G. Much easier. So, made my life a lot easier. But, I just got up and I played the songs, and I got off, and I got a call about 2 weeks later or a week later. Do you want to do another, we'd like you to do another audition. And it was more of the same, but, in their studio, and I was given run-throughs, and, I kind of, was allowed to, I just played a little. It was a bit more intense, a bit more involved, and I had more of a chance to show off, whatever do whatever I thought was right. And then I waited for ages, and then they said, "Yeah, you're in."
Right. Yeah. Right. When you think back to the days of the Clash, did you have the days that you were in the band? Do you have an overriding emotion? Is there a visceral reaction of any description? Like
it depends.
Yeah.
Depends in what circumstances I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
I have very, very fond memories of my time in the Clash. I have very positive memories of my time in the Clash because I know that it informed my approach to performance and musicianship, whatever, to the whole bag immensely. And I learned a lot, and I probably stopped being reactive at that point and started to realise that, proactivity was a lot better course. But then, of course, I do have moments when I'm incredibly frustrated by the outcome, especially the recorded outcome. And so it's there's a definite duality there.
Yeah.
But I mean, the other thing is that I don't really think about it that much.
Fair. Yeah.
I mean, it's a long time ago, and it was 2 years.
Yeah.
It's that weird thing where here's Nick Sheppard. He was in the Clash. I'm fucking 65, and I've done a lot more than
fair. Yeah, exactly.
So I've been in a Rolling Stones cover band for 11 years. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's part cross to bear, part Lego.
Yeah. Because some of that attention, because of that 15 minutes, can get a bit, sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Yep.
But it can be a bit, especially when alcohol's involved, it can be a bit.
When someone at the pub wants to.
Because I'm still out there playing, so
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So but in general, I have very, very fond memories of the time. Yeah.
Do you feel like it sort of did supercharge your experience a little bit, your life experience, your musical experience? Because you went out on the road pretty early with them. Yeah, and you're out on the road for quite a while.
Yeah. No, it really did. I mean, it really. It was a real. It was like a Red Bull.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. And you were writing songs collaboratively during that period?
Not initially. The songs came in, and but then I started trying to arrange things. It was they were Joe's songs.
Yes.
Then we started. How about if we do this at the beginning, and how about if and trying. It started to become a band. Yeah.
Right. And Joe was open to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He encouraged it.
Okay. Yeah. Because the band was in an interesting place in terms of, obviously he was taking a big swing with the Clash too, etc. So I'm just wondering how protective of that he was, or how open he was to letting you, because there's 3 new members, right? So there's letting the 3 new members in, letting you have a voice.
Yeah, I think you see, obviously, Strummer Mick Jones wrote a lot of the melody.
Yes.
Joe wrote the words and Mick wrote the melody. So I think he was very open to getting some of that back. To looking, to have stuff to bounce off. It was a group. It wasn't Joe Strummer and the Clash. We weren't a backing band.
Yeah.
So musically, it was a group.
Yes, righto. Yeah, because the retelling of the history is that Joe was looking to strip the sound back quite a lot.
Yeah,
and go back to an earlier sound, less of the dub and reggae stuff that they'd been doing over the last few albums.
I think it was more. Not really about musical styles. I think it was just more about musical intent. So he wasn't averse to different, musical genres being incorporated, but he was averse to guitar synths.
Right.
And rototoms, and there were certain things that it was pretty obvious that were not missed.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that was also obviously a kind of I don't know if commercial's the right word, but a business decision to go back to guitars and drums, and Bernie, the manager, was involved in that too.
Yeah.
That started to get quite Stalinist. You must buy a Les Paul. This is the guitar you're going to play. That kind of thing.
From Bernie in particular.
Yeah.
I know Pete Howard hasn't really held back in his thoughts about how things went with Bernie in particular.
Yeah.
Because as the telling of it is that you guys had written a bunch of songs, you're playing them live and you're getting good reception, the crowds are enjoying them. And then when you go back to actually start recording these, the end result is not really anything much like what you would...
No, it's got nothing to do with us, really, basically.
No,
so Pete's not on it. It's a terrible drum machine.
Yeah.
Programmed by someone who didn't really know how to... seriously. It's got synths all over it. it's got weird. Yeah,
found noises and samples.
Well, that I don't mind. Like the thing about the record is, right, I don't like the synths.
Yeah,
I don't like that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I don't like the fact that our arrangements were completely ignored.
Yeah.
And I was just told to play kind of punk rock thrash guitar throughout the whole fucking thing. I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like the vocal sounds. I hate the production, basically. But the interesting thing about all that found samples is that it's exactly what Mick Jones was doing. But Mick Jones is a very musical person, and Bernie Rhodes doesn't have a musical bone in his body.
Yeah, yeah.
So him producing a record is a travesty, because you need to be musical to produce music.
Sort of seems to make sense, yeah.
But I think his thing was, and I think Joe would back me up on this, I think he did, is that, Bernie thought, how hard can it be? I've done everything else. I'll write these songs. So it says, drummer, you need us. I don't know what the songwriting credit is, but the idea is that Bernie co-wrote the songs.
Yeah, yeah.
It's absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
But, whatever. So there's a lot, the record is a big disappointment to me,
because he's got these delusions of grandeur and a bit of a Machiavellian thing going on there where he's trying to control things. So, Have you ever had any opportunity, is there any of the original stems or anything of you guys in their original form before they sort of got trodden all over?
Interestingly, a guy during COVID, a German guy called Gerard Manns, stripped Joe's vocals from the recordings and completely re-recorded everything else to fairly good, had fairly good success, especially with the songs that he could listen to our versions, because there's lots of live bootlegs.
Yes, yep.
So he took the live stuff, and took those arrangements and redid them. And I think it's called, no, I can't. Mohawk Revenge. It's called.
Okay.
It's an album. It's called Mohawk Revenge.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't know if there's any left. They did a limited run.
Yeah,
but, it'll be on. It'll be on. It's definitely on YouTube.
Yeah. How did you feel about that?
Again, a bit weird, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's what it should have been, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
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 And a couple of, interestingly, a friend of mine, quite young, I told her about it, and she said, "Oh, that's a bit insulting." So it's you could take it either way, like it's obviously done by these guys that care passionately about the 2 years of my life that I have completely
just put it on the shelf.
Yeah. So it's a kind of weird thing.
Yeah.
I wish them well. Good on them. They've done it from the right place. So
sounds like a passion project, if nothing else.
And they've released a record, and the money made is going to charities in America and Europe.
All right.
And they're good charities and that. So good luck to them. That's great. And and as I said, the guy's done a good job with what he had.
Yeah. Patched it together.
But it would have been nice, to actually make that record.
Yes. Yeah. So that's got to be that's got to be part of the duality of it.
Yeah,
right?
it's a weird. Yeah.
Did you maintain any connection with the guys in the band after that dissolved? Because it dissolved not long after that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still talking to Pete a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen. I mean, Joe came out with the Big Day Out.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Yeah. We hung out for about a week afterwards. It was lovely.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was nice. So,
I personally, that was a massive highlight of my gig.
Yeah, did you go there?
Yeah.
For me, it was like being in the Matrix.
Yeah.
I'd be doing a song that I used to do, and I'd be like, boy. It's very strange, but enjoyable. And he stayed on for a week with his partner and her kid, and my kids were the same age, so they went to the beach and hung out and went out for meals and stuff, and we got to say stuff, which was really nice.
Excellent.
It was really nice, especially what happened afterwards.
Some closure.
Yeah, excellent. And I've seen Paul a few times and talked to him a bit, message him a bit.
Yeah,
he was over with the Gorillas.
Yeah, he's done a few things there.
Yeah. So
that's nice. Yeah. I'm glad Joe stuck around and got a better impression of Perth, because if I remember correctly, and it's obviously 25 years ago, he wasn't incredibly impressed with the stage they'd stuck him on. I remember him saying something along the lines of thanks for finding me on the back of the map or something.
Yeah,
and the boiler room was getting louder and louder as it was going on. And but just the opportunity to see those songs live was fantastic for me. It was me and a couple of older English gentlemen up the front having the time of our lives.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So after that finished, you played in various bands. Was Head the main act that you went?
Would have been, yeah.
So I listened to a bit of Head over the last few days after becoming aware of them. Pardon my ignorant take here. This might be completely incorrect, but it seems to me some of the elements of that seemed quite a forward-thinking sound at that point.
It was. Yeah.
And I was thinking, couldn't help but listen to it with some of the syncopated drums and the gang vocals and the angular guitars, and thinking, is this what if they incorporated this sort of thing into Cut the Crap, it would be a much better.
Yeah, well,
it felt like an evolution that maybe Cut the Crap was trying to be, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that's my point with Bernie. He was on the right track. He was in the right moment and doing the right things.
Yeah.
But in completely, the wrong way, if you like, without that musical. I don't know if it's skill, but it's it's musicality. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah.
And we were definitely in Head using the same technology, sampling had just come in. Fairlights, and we first, as soon as we got the money, we bought one. Bought a sampling keyboard so we could have Woody Woodpecker and stuff. Without a doubt, the first album we used a drum machine.
Yep.
Next two we didn't, but those kind of elements were certainly used, and not uncommon. There are other bands doing it too. What was his name? There was a bunch of stuff. Obviously, Big Audio Dynamite, were doing a very similar thing, more dancey, but a very similar thing. Lots of that kind of stuff was going on at the time.
Yeah, and those bandmates were people you knew previously, or they were, I went to
school with the singer Rich.
Right.
Same year.
Yeah.
Same school. Gareth was from the school on the top of the hill, so we'd meet up for lunch and smoke fags and cigarettes and talk bullshit. Gareth went on to form the pop group with Mark Stewart, who went to school with me in the same year as me and Rich. Rich Beals did the artwork for the pop group, so we we were in the same thing. We were in the same scene. We used to hire it when we went to play the Roxy when I was in the Cortinas. All those guys would be in the van helping pay for the van. And we'd all drive up and get in and drive back the same night and stuff. So I'd known those kids, since we were kids.
Was there a conscious decision to return to your roots like that after the experience?
I couldn't afford to stay in London.
Yeah.
When the Clash disbanded.
Yeah. Because you were paid just a wage with the Clash, right?
I mean that
£100 a week.
Oh, a bit more than that, but so I couldn't really afford to stay in London, but Joe, we had a talk, and Joe was like, "Look, I'm not going on with this. Meet me tomorrow. I'll give you £1,000 each, and just keep drawing your wages until someone stops putting them in the bank. Just every week, just go to the bank and take it all out.
Yeah.
And that lasted for about 3 months. The money kept going in.
Okay.
But I was like, I'm not going to be able to afford to live in the apartment that I was renting. I'm going to move back to Bristol. I'm going to sort something out there. And also, I'd had a bit. Other stuff was going on in my life, and I was over it.
Yeah.
So, was back in Bristol. I was just hanging out, really just decompressing. And Gareth rang me up. He was in London. He rang me up and said, "Do you want to be in a band with me and Rich?" And I just went, yeah. And so Jamie, the drummer, was a bit younger than us three, and Mark, the bass player, was a bit younger. But we knew them, and they'd been in the scene and playing in bands in Bristol, and so we all kind of just went, let's do this,
Yeah.
And again, sometimes you get in a room with people and it works.
Clicks, yeah. Certainly, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think it sounds really good. Still actually holds up the composition and everything of it, and all the scuttlebutt online is very positive. It's like, why weren't these guys? Why didn't they break out bigger? Sort of, this sounds awesome. So that must be relatively gratifying. Also, notice there's a sense of humour behind it.
Huge! We just took the piss out of it.
Some pretty funny song names and
one of that. I mean, for me, that was a real. There were two things about Head that were kind of really important. One was just being given the freedom and just playing, as opposed to being told what not to do and what to do. And this was especially true during the album, right? But also, it was like, I'm not playing other people's songs now. We're writing these songs right now, right here.
Yeah.
And my contribution is being valued. And I had like a kind of verbal diarrhea musically. I was just like pouring out of me. And the other was, it got a bit po-faced when I was in the Clash. It was all a bit serious, you know.
Yeah.
And backstage would be all about, I'd like you to meet my friend who's been working in El Salvador. And we'd all go, oh, you need to talk to him over there. Joe would be sitting there going, oh, God. But it all got a bit, serious.
It had a weight to it.
And unpleasant.
Yeah.
And so being in Head and having a laugh and, we took the piss out of everything.
Yeah.
Including the music industry, and did quite well with it.
Yeah. So that was a palate cleanser of sorts?
Very much so.
Yep.
Very much so.
A reset?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And to do it with a couple of mates from your teenage years was great.
Yeah, so I was really impressed by it. And the next 5 years or so, you moved around a little bit after Head. What was happening there? You're searching for something, or you're just trying to find?
Well, Head lasted until about 89.
Okay.
And we kind of finished up Head. I remember pretty much the last gig we did, I told Gareth that, my partner was pregnant. So Head, was met with not enough we didn't do well enough to do more than 3 albums. That was a natural thing, and that was fine by me, and I had a kid on the way and an apartment to renovate, and so I just threw myself into that. And then as my life progressed, and we ended up having 2 girls, but I was playing with some other mates up in London. I'd moved back to London by now. I obviously met my partner, who I'm still with, and a different life started happening. And I was playing in a band that ironically got signed to a management and publishing deal by Miles Copeland.
Okay.
So I mean, this is in conjunction with my kids growing up, starting to go to preschool, etc., and the idea of Australia was brought up. And I'd been here a couple of times, and I think really one of the, in terms of the music side of things, one of the things that I started to realise was that it's like snakes and ladders. You go up, you go back down, and when you go back down, it's not like you go back down to the fucking basement. There's no, you might have some kind of reputation, but, and then, unlike a lot of other industries, as you get older, or this is certainly true back in the 80s, as you got older, you became obviously, less relevant to maybe the industry's idea of the audience. And I think that's changed now, but because we've all grown up with it now. But there was a prevailing attitude was that the older you got, the less you had to offer, which in any other industry is the opposite.
Yeah,
you get promoted.
Yeah, getting more experience.
Yeah. No, I think that's the case now.
Interesting.
I think that's the case now.
Yeah.
But back then, I think the prevailing idea was no. You're 30.
You've aged out.
Yeah. So, and this idea, I started this band and we started doing demos and we had a publishing deal and it wasn't a great one, and and I thought I need a reset again,
Yeah.
So I came here.
Yeah. Who brought up Australia? Was that your idea?
No, it was my wife's. Yeah, my partner. Yeah.
Why Perth?
She was born here. She grew up here.
Okay, interesting. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a return to home for her.
Yeah, it was a return to home for her.
Yeah.
And a big adventure for me. I think a big adventure for her too. Yeah. To be honest, for both of us. Yeah.
How did you find moving to Perth initially? Did you have artistic intent when you first moved here, or was it more just about settling in and getting the family sorted out?
We had to buy a house and find a way of making money. And
so we're into the early 90s here.
94,
mid 90s.
Yeah. So I struggled at first because the cultural environment I moved to was a lot narrower in its focus than the one I was used to, which is funny really, because this is a very multicultural place.
Yes, yeah.
But in terms of, the area that I was trying to operate in, it was very white.
Yes, yeah.
So I struggled initially to find anyone that I could really relate to.
Yeah.
And for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Environment that most people grew up, at my age, it was very different. And also there was no internet, there was no, we had none of that. So it was very isolated, and consequently the kind of influences and the culture was kind of isolated. And so it took me a while.
Yeah.
But, got there.
Yeah.
Got there. One of the things that really helped me was hearing Jamie's Got a Girl by UMI.
Yeah, okay.
It really helped.
Interesting.
I heard that on the radio and went, oh, right, there are people in this continent that get what I get. Yeah.
Unfortunately, on the other side.
but I mean, at least, and then you find out, Tim grew up in Kalgoorlie and,
Yeah.
And then, there's stuff happening and you go, oh, yeah. The 90s was quite a good time in Perth.
It was actually,
there was a lot of music going on.
Yeah. There was definitely some bands sort of breaking through the glass ceiling from the alternative side.
Jebediah, I remember, hearing Jebediah and going, oh, okay, yeah. Sure, they're a lot younger than me.
Yeah.
But that's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So did you find when you decided to take the leap and try and sort of crack the musical community here, was it welcoming or was it cliquey? Did you find...
there was an element of it being cliquey. I mean, there still is.
Yeah. You're not a local yet, you don't think?
In some places, definitely not. Yeah. Not sure I want to be.
Yeah, fair.
Yes, to a degree it was, and then to a degree it wasn't. And again, there was a lot of my whole 15 minutes can work against you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. In fact, really, I guess I broke through by DJing initially rather than playing the guitar.
Yeah.
I started DJing quite early on when I got here because I'd been doing it a little bit in London, and did quite well. Makes quite a lot of money. Did quite well with that.
Yeah.
And met people through that kind of things started to open up a bit. I met Phil Stevens, who now manages John Butler.
Yeah. So he's he's to do with Jarrah
Records. Yeah. So I met him. He used to do these clubs called Vibrazone. I started occasionally, and I'd do one of those, and and the people there were like into the kind of music that I was playing. Like funk records, and
Yep.
So. Yeah, that helped in break down that thing. I think with the music thing, it's like I was saying earlier about the ageist thing. I remember meeting Paul Sloan, who I later played with, and him saying that at 28 people were thinking he was too old.
Yeah, wow.
And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a weird thing to say, but because I'd never really thought about it, but so. So there was a little bit of that going on, a little bit of that. I remember DJing, and one of the girls that worked in the pub I was working at saying, "Oh, those two guys over there saying you weren't in the Clash." I was like, "Oh, okay, must be mistaken." There's things like that going on, and they were like, "No, he wasn't." you know, because there was no Wikipedia.
Yeah,
no
fact check. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you know, and I was like, well, you know, I can't help you. You know,
what are we going to do? Yeah. You want me to bust out a couple of songs? I don't know who's supposed to actually prove that to a stranger.
I have a picture in my head.
Yeah, it's signed by Joe.
Yeah. So, you know, it took a while, but not, you know, I mean, you're moving to a completely different country.
Yes.
The most isolated city in the world.
Yeah.
31 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
It was a different place.
Yes.
It's blossomed beyond all recognition.
Yeah, I believe so myself too. Yeah. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you've basically been gigging in bands the whole time after that.
Yeah,
consistently over the last.
Yeah. Pretty much. I started a band quite soon after I got here called the New Egyptian Kings.
Yeah.
And we were unearthed on Triple J. You know. So stuff started. You know. Again, back then, you know, it was great. You've been unearthed. What are you going to do with it? You're stuck here, you know.
Yeah.
So I played with Don Mariani, and we had a band called the Dominics.
Yeah.
We did 2 records with them, and I Feel All Rights now, and just put our album out.
Yes. Yeah.
So and various kind of other rock and roll cover bands, and I just love playing, man. You know, it's not been by any means my main source of income, but
the buzz hasn't worn off.
It's what I do. If you ask me what I do, that's what I do.
Feel at home.
That's why I'm here. You know.
Yeah. Must be nice to have found your purpose.
Absolutely. And
your talent. I'll find both my purpose and my hidden talent
one day.
It's pretty bloody hidden. Never mind. So you're with the Feel All Rights at the moment. You've recently released How Do You Feel? Yeah. Yep, you're happy with the results of that one?
Yeah, very, really like it. I mean, it's interesting. The story behind that band is that we formed a band with a friend of ours who's American, who was a lead singer. And I was made up because for years I'd been singing and playing the guitar.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to play the guitar. I didn't want to be the singer in every band I've ever been in. And then, because he was American, he had to go back to America for work. And COVID happened. So he was stuck there. So we went, we'll just carry on and we'll do, and my thing with bands is like, you should start by doing covers.
Yeah, okay.
Because then you find what you all like.
Okay.
And you also find what you're all good at.
Okay. Regardless of where you are in the sort of continuum of your career, you think it's a
great idea.
Interesting, okay.
Go in and go, I really like this song.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
I'm glad you really like it, but we can't play it. We sound crap. I really like, now that song we sound good on. That's interesting.
Yeah. Makes
so anyway,
sense. Yeah.
So we just to keep going and to put that theory into practice, as I have done before. And not every band I've been in, but if you look at the Rolling Stones, that's what they did for 2 albums, you know, and the Beatles, you know. Yeah. So great idea. So we did it, and we did it with 60s stuff. So we do, we Kinks and Stones and Yardbirds and Beatles and out of that, I started, songs just started appearing, and I would shamelessly do things like, what if I do something that sounds like Taxman but isn't, or what if I can I write those chords that the Yardbirds use, can I get some of that, and so it's got a very quite particular area it's drawn from genre-wise.
Yeah.
Is that kind of psych beat, garagey type thing.
Yeah.
But it's recorded in a contemporary way.
Okay.
We didn't try and go back and, use an 8-track desk and tape and, do it all live or anything,
Yeah.
So we went to a studio down by Bunbury and had a great time recording it. And it's, so I like that. I like that it's only us. There's no other musicians on the record. Mm-hmm. It's the 4 of us.
Yeah.
And I like that I wrote all the songs.
Okay.
Because that's never happened before.
Right. Yeah. So you're the primary.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. How does your creative process generally work? Are you you were just saying that you might take some interpretations of of influences and reinterpret them. Is that common or
no? That really that's kind of that's kind of an interesting. That was kind of born out of the project.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't normally consciously do that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But I was having fun with where we were, and we're called the Feel Alrights. It's not meant to be taken too seriously.
Yeah.
Some of the songs were kind of ideas that I had that I adapted. Like, oh yeah, that's a cool song. If I did it like this, it would fit with the rest of the songs on the record.
Yeah. Yeah.
But normally, no. Normally, a song will start with a phrase. I hear something and it will.
As in a melody phrase or
a vocal,
yeah.
like
words.
Yeah, I don't know. Forget about me.
Okay. Yeah.
As opposed to you must always remember me. I don't know. Things like that, or it'll normally be a phrase that I will latch onto. I'll overhear, or I'll think of, and I will try and find a melody for that particular line.
Okay.
And then I'll try and develop something from there, and it can happen like in 5 minutes if you're lucky. And it can take 2 months, 3 months, I'll try it this way, I'll try it that way. But it normally comes from a phrase. Occasionally when I'm walking the dogs, I will come up with a melody.
Yeah.
And my rule with that is that I don't take my phone on my walk in the mornings.
Yeah, okay.
And if I can remember it when I've got home, it's worth remembering.
Interesting, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay. And are you writing all the musical parts for this particular...
No. It's a band. It's a band.
Yeah.
I just take the song in.
Okay.
And maybe a hook.
Okay. Yep.
Maybe a kind of riff.
Yep.
Definitely a kind of a plan of where it's going to be.
Vibe.
And then the bands get hold of it, and that can completely change.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yep.
Some of them are like I said, the 5 minute ones. They're kind of like that's it. That's there. Bang. It just lands perfectly.
Lightning strikes, yeah.
Yeah. But I play with some great guys who are very, very musical themselves, and the songs would not sound the same without them.
There's some veterans for the most part.
Those songs would. We've all been around, and the songs would not sound like they do without those guys. No.
Yeah. The show's going well.
Yeah.
Still enjoying it. Said you played a couple of times this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
So I do the Feel Alrights. I play with some guys that I've been playing with for years, and we just play rock and roll and R&B.
Okay. Yeah.
It's called Jack Royale.
Yeah.
I have a three-piece with two of my younger daughter's friends.
Okay.
Whose combined age is less than mine, who are fantastic guys and great musicians.
Yeah.
That's called the Young Pomeranians.
Yeah. So do you gig on and off with those guys?
Yeah, it's an irregular thing.
Yeah.
We played on Friday.
Okay. Yeah.
In that song, I do revisit some Clash songs in that band.
Yeah.
And we do like all the covers that the Clash covered and things like that.
Oh, okay.
But
so some of the dub stuff.
No, Police on My Back and Police and Thieves. We do, Armageddon Time, and we do, and then there's a couple of songs from my time in that. Yeah. Like North and South, which is a song that I sung at the time when I was in the band. Yeah. And another song that wasn't released. It's called Pouring Rain. So
Yeah. But so it's a semi-regular one.
Semi-regular and very loose. Yeah. Like we jam a lot.
Okay.
On stage, it's a very loose thing. It's it's a kind of cross between the Clash and Cream, or the Jimi Hendrix Experience. plays punk. Quite like
the sound of that, actually.
It's good. It's a good band. Yeah. I enjoy.
I love the name for what it's worth as well. Yeah, it's really good.
And the Dead Flowers, who I played with last night, which is there was a night run by a couple of mates of ours. Down at the Newport Hotel about 11 years ago, called the Record Club, which is a Thursday night. you got together with some people who maybe you didn't normally play with and played your favourite album.
Right.
So we got together and played Sticky Fingers.
Yeah, yeah.
Went really well. It's a big band. There's 7, 8 of us, depending.
Wow.
We then did another record. I can't remember. Exile.
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
You know, so we'd learned all these songs, and we all share an appreciation for that band. And we did, I think, 3 gigs at the record club, and then you know, I don't know, the word got out, and you know, Rosemount would ring us up, and you know, Port Beach, and you know, we go down. Where do we play? We played there's an amazing quarry in Floriat.
Okay.
It's a natural amphitheatre in Bold Park. We played there last night.
Yeah, really?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice. Interestingly, it was the anniversary of Altamont.
Right.
So we should have had some Hells Angels doing security. But I would have got a couple of good jokes out of that, at least a couple.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise until today.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Everyone made it out all right this time?
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. No, we should have. Anyway. But so that's so I play a lot, and I enjoy everything I'm involved with, be it original stuff, covers. You know, it's what I do.
Yeah, it's really awesome to have this through line through your whole life of something that you sort of sustained you and been passionate about, and you're getting something back from it as well. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And you run a clothing store with your partner?
With my partner,
and you have done for quite a while?
Yeah, since we've been here. Yeah.
In Mount Lawley?
Yeah, we it's called Elroy Clothing, and it's at 769 Beaufort Street, which is a cafe that some friends of ours have called Local Anaesthetic, and it's a really big building, and they don't use the back.
Okay.
So we just took the back room.
Yeah.
And we open at the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
You know, so we kind of have this. Well, I mean, we do a lot of online stuff. So we're there every day, but we open to the public at the weekends because I don't want to sit there all. You know, so we have a fairly comfortably. A good work-life balance, I will call it. Yeah,
nice. Yeah. Just some sort of random, more sort of broad questions for you as well, just regarding sort of the industry and life and that sort of stuff. If you were given the opportunity, is there much you would change over the course of the journey? Is there anything that you would think really sticks in your craw that you would do differently?
No, I don't think there's something. I don't think there's any. I mean, I may have tried to dissuade Gareth not to sack someone after we made every album.
Yeah.
Maybe, because, he would. I don't know why, but we'd finish a record and he'd go, "I've got to get a new drummer."
Right. It's always the drummer too, isn't it?
Or it was the bass player on the next one.
Yeah, next.
And then, and after the third one, it was basically me.
Because you feel like Head might have been more cohesive?
Yeah. I can understand the drummer, but we should maybe cut the bass player. But, But that's a kind of small fry. Not really. Nothing big. No. I mean, the things that I would have liked to have been different, as discussed, are kind of out of my control.
Yeah.
And a lot of this industry, if you want to call it that, is really random. You know, a lot of this is just really pure luck, pure dumb luck. You know, if the police toured America really early on and played to 5 people. Yeah, I think it was in Boston, and one of them was a radio plugger, and they started playing Roxanne. You know,
right? Yep.
You know, things like that. You just can't quantify how random this shit is.
Yeah.
So no.
The element of serendipity is a big part of it, I guess.
Yeah. And so you know, you're riding on this, you know, ocean of randomness. So you know, so the things that I would have liked to have been different, I had no control over.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't dwell on it.
Yep. Yeah. Must be nice. I'm a fixator myself. I have an existential crisis about every night, but never mind. You've definitely been in the game long enough to see some huge I don't know if evolution is the right word, but changes in technology. I guess it'd be evolution. Some good, perhaps, some not so good. Do you think that overall there's obviously streaming and all that sort of stuff are the big ones. Streaming and AI are probably the two current sort of hot topics, but even ways to capture your music, ways to record and release your music, all that sort of stuff has really, really changed over the years. Do you think we're better off?
I'm not better off.
No?
Financially, no.
No?
God, no.
Yeah.
No, I think, okay, so my analogy with music business, right? Under the capitalist structure, the idea is to get a product as cheaply as possible and sell it for as much as possible. In the music industry, the musician, the artist, the performer, whatever you want to call them, is the tin of beans. They're the product. So they will get as little as the company that owns them, if you like, can get away with, whilst being sold for as much as possible. That's always been the case. And then you add in the corruption and the usual capitalist,
the bad actors, and
which is not specific to the music business. It's any business, you know. I'm sure the oil industry is far worse.
Yeah, but people have been exploiting artists pretty.
Yeah, but we are the tin of beans.
Yeah,
the artist is the tin of beans. So you know, you're the product.
Yeah,
and you know, you will be sold for as much as possible and given as little. And that's always been the case, and it's got worse.
Yes, yeah.
As Snoop Dogg said, "There's my 1,000,000 streams. Where's my $1 million?"
Yeah,
and that's all the logic you need to hear.
Yeah.
There are Arctic Monkeys, right? Okay, first band to break via the internet, via MySpace, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that got them out.
Yeah,
but they sold product.
Yeah.
So they were like the first one. So you could take them as one of the first bands that benefited from social media, but also benefited from the fact that streaming hadn't come through yet.
Okay.
On a large scale. Like it's file sharing. I know. You know, Napster and all of that. But they made money by selling music, and that kind of era was probably the last era that did.
Yeah.
So bands coming through now, I don't see how they can generate enough to really sustain a proper kind of lifestyle, really, because you know, you're not unlike a sportsman. You have a shelf life. You know, there aren't many bands that have lasted as long as the Rolling Stones. No. You know, most people don't. You know, most bands like 4 or 5 years. You know, and then, like I said, back down the snake. You know, and start climbing the ladder again. Yeah. So, I think streaming is appalling. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Streams appalling. I'll tell you what my average listening age is. Spotify. It's pay me some fucking money. You know. Yeah. Yeah. It's and capitalism in general is eating itself. Mm-hmm. It's running out of things to eat. It's running out of things, and it may well collapse because of it. So what's happening is that they're now, in fiscally they're eating people. You know, I despair for young bands now. I mean, there aren't any young bands. You know, in England, the concept of a guitar band, it's kind of almost disappeared on a level that you can really make anything worthwhile. You know, I'm hoping that Oasis inspire a whole new
potentially. Yeah. Who knows?
The one good thing that could. Oh no, I don't mean that. No. Good luck to them.
They seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, I don't think they'll care what I think. But yeah.
So it's disappointing, isn't it, that the structures have sort of evolved in a way that's putting more of a squeeze on the artist instead of the other way around. I mean,
absolutely.
I have no idea. I'm not a smart enough man to work out what any of the answers are to these issues. But it's definitely disappointing that as the technology has moved along, of course, the people at the top of the tree of power have the ability to squeeze further the people down the bottom, and it's just getting worse and worse. So,
not unlike a lot of other industries, a lot of other capitalist endeavours. That's what's happening.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but it's sort of implicit in your trying to get ahead in any way. You sort of have to buy into you either sell out or you buy in, sort of thing, right? Like you have to buy into a certain degree to this structure that exists.
You do. I mean, you know, we've put our record on our streaming services. You know, they're out there.
Yeah.
You know, my $11 check will roll in next month. You know. But you see, but some okay. I was asked this a while ago actually about the music industry. And I said, well, my music industry is like, how much can I get a bar in Fremantle to pay me to play there? Can I get the musicians' union minimum or just above? You know, if I do that Rolling Stones thing, how much are we going to make by playing at the Quarry? You know.
Yeah.
So my music industry is really local, and it's 99% to do with negotiating with a bar.
Yeah.
To get money to play, you know, live. We put this record out. You can stream it, and I'll get my 0.003 cents.
You've got a couple of 0.003 cents coming from me, mate.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll buy a coffee with it. So, you know, it's out there, but we sell albums, vinyl, and we sell cassettes, CDs, and you can buy them at a show, and we paid for them, and we get all the money that we make goes straight into our bank account, which will help us make another one. You know, or a video clip, or go over to the East Coast. You know, so that's how we work it. That's our industry. And it's, you know, moderately successful and
self-sustaining, at least, I guess, to an extent.
I think somebody said that, I can't remember who it was, but they said that they make more money from selling 4 albums, 4 LPs, vinyl, than 20,000 streams. So, you know, probably make 30 bucks an album, you know, as opposed to 0 point whatever it is of a cent.
Taking out the creative accounting that's always gone in the music industry as well, whereby someone hands you $30, you hand them an album, you know, here's 30 tangible dollars. I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy nut here, but who knows how many streams anyone's even getting, right? So I know how you trace that sort of thing. We're expecting the corporate overlords to be honest with us about this sort of stuff.
Exactly. Who's counting them? Where's the accountability?
That's exactly right.
If there is any, it will be industry run, and that's just as dangerous.
There's going to have to be something, I think. Again, someone smarter than me can work that out, especially with the advent of AI, which is a whole nother scary threat in there.
But that you know, then you're just paying someone to create an algorithm. You probably pay them a weekly wage. They don't own the songs because they didn't write them. They just stuck the algorithm in. Record company doesn't even have to pay you 0.003 of a cent, right?
It's pretty depressing.
Paying no one. And it's happening. It's always out there.
Just lighten things up a little bit. What are you listening to yourself these days? Is anything moving you in particular?
Recently, what have I bought? Last record I bought was the first recordings the Faces made before they released First Steps, and it's called Early Steps.
Okay.
I'm a massive Faces fan. I love the Faces. I think Ronnie, what was that quote? Rod Stewart was great until he swapped Ronnie Wood for Brett Eklund. I have sleepless nights trying to work out whether the Faces were better than the Stones or the Stones. So as the last record I bought, I really love Amor and the Sniffers. I think they're fantastic. I like Idols. I've been listening to new stuff. I love Krungben. I think they're fantastic. I really like Goat. I saw them at the Fairbridge Festival. And they blew me away. I like King Gizzard. Although I haven't heard their recent stuff. I really like them.
They're probably putting another album out tomorrow.
Yeah, probably. It's probably been 5 this week. What else?
Do you still have a thirst for the new music? And
No, I wouldn't call it a thirst. No, I just kind of, I don't actively kind of only go out and listen to new stuff. I probably listen to a lot more old stuff.
Yeah.
I love listening to reggae.
Yep.
From the 70s, 60s, late 60s, 70s reggae.
Yeah.
I grew up with that. Bristol has a very large West Indian population.
Yep.
And a very established one. Because of the slave trade. And so I grew up with that music.
Yep.
So it's like a nice, warm, comfortable blanket.
Yes.
I love old Northern soul records and soul. I love soul music, and I buy a lot of that on 7.
Yep.
7-inch. And I listen to jazz because I grew up with it, and I love it. And I listen to... all the old punk stuff. I still play that, and I've still listened to Roxy music.
Yeah.
But new music finds me. You know, like I'm open to it.
Yes.
And when it works, it works. Yeah. I am completely disconnected from what you would call that kind of popular culture. Pop music. I have no idea.
I don't know who Charlie XCX is. Or
I wouldn't be able to tell a song, you know. But I'll hear, Kendrick Lamar. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm more inclined to. I will gravitate towards hip hop.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that was another. You talked about the sampling, found ideas, and the stuff that was going on in head. That was a lot to do with. The hip hop influence of the kind.
And there's some spoken word stuff that's sort of on the precipice of hip hop.
Oh yeah, definitely. We were definitely aware and listening to that and incorporating those ideas, if not genre. It was an idea thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But so I'm drawn towards hip hop.
Yeah.
I'd listen. Adela Soul just put a new album out, which is really good.
Yeah. Okay. I actually loved De La Soul. Didn't know that was out.
It's just come out there. So it's a kind of homage to is it Dave died? Trugoy? Dove? Yeah, he died. It's a great record.
Yeah. Don't know how I missed that, but I'll have to look that up.
It's so fucking hard these days, you know. I didn't know Tool. I don't like Tool.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
But I had no idea they were playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And same with Metallica. I had no idea Metallica were going to sell out the Optus Stadium until I heard it.
It was a hell of a show, that Tool show. I went along. It was very good. Yeah, enjoy it. Yeah. Unfortunately, someone else took the free work tickets for Metallica, so I wasn't going to pony up the coin. But
I had no idea. How do you find? Again, if you're not linked into some social media thing. Really.
Here's the thing: is I feel like I'm probably too connected to social media, and yet I had no idea that those sort of things were going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think. With our talk, just sort of rolling it back to our talk about tech there, we didn't really touch on social media. That's one, I find that one a little bit more interesting in that we can curate it a little bit better ourselves. It definitely has its issues and is insidious a little bit, but like I've found, like if you are a creator and an artist in some description, it can actually be a pretty useful tool.
Absolutely.
More so than some of the other tech, which I find a little bit more, as I say, insidious or...
Yeah. No, social media is very useful. I wouldn't be on it if I didn't make money off it, but I do, and it's very useful for that.
Yeah.
All social media is a form of advertising.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Whether it's putting a picture of your breakfast up, or your new dress, or your shoes, or your gig, or your shop. Yeah. So I make money off social media, and unfortunately, because I would personally prefer not to be on it.
Yeah.
But. It's the thing about social media is the algorithm works.
Yes.
So if you spend money on social media, you reach people that are likely to be interested in your stuff.
Yes.
Rather than advertising in a paper, 90% of the people who are going to read it, 99% are not going to be interested at all.
Yeah, makes sense.
The downside of that is how do you reach the people that are just outside that algorithm? Like, how come I didn't know Metallica were playing or Tool were playing? So it is exclusive as well as it can be inclusive.
Yes.
I think That's the problem with the whole algorithm thing. And they work that, they need to do that because they make money off it by targeting advertisers.
Yeah.
Like if I'm advertising.
There's a circle.
Yeah. So and I know it works, so I use it.
Yeah.
So they know that works, so they refine it.
Yeah.
So it's like if you use a streaming service, the amount of music offered you by the streaming service becomes less and less as they, as they kind of go,
get to know you.
Yeah.
As they would say, yeah.
So it's so you go on Facebook and everyone agrees with you politically, right? Everyone on my Facebook page thinks Trump's a fucking idiot, right? Apart from one woman who I'm really good friends with, who who isn't, and she doesn't talk much. I don't talk much either, but I know that she's. So anyway,
Yeah, so it's give that one. I find that one's a little more complex. It's given us a megaphone.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Look, it's never been cheaper to make a record.
Yep.
I made a record with my son-in-law who lives in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Over, using Dropbox files and GarageBand.
Yep.
So we made it. It didn't cost, fuck all.
Yep.
We had to get it mastered, but that's it.
Yep. Yep.
So you can make a record really cheap, but there's really no way of making any money off that record.
You got to sell your soul to get it out there.
Yeah, well, sell your soul and you still don't get any money.
Yeah, give your soul away for free.
Basically, you basically. I mean, music is free now. You know, the trouble with that, as a consumer, is you make no financial investment in it.
Yeah.
So if you make no financial investment, you've made no emotional investment.
Yeah. Yep. There's no commitment.
There's no and so music is becoming less important. When I grew up, we used to walk around with the album sleeve under our arm.
Yeah.
We could have put it in our bag, but we were going, that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
That's who I am. That's what I like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of disappeared.
Yeah. Well, it's disappeared on multiple levels, right? Because the effort that goes into making that sleeve is lessened because it's not worth making tangible stuff, physical media anymore. I'm old enough to love opening a CD, opening a record, and the more effort an artist has put into that resonates with me. Yeah. There's part of the journey there.
Absolutely.
I mean, probably 90% of or more music listeners don't listen to the full album.
No, the concept
you served a single. You served
concept of an album is almost outdated now. Yeah.
Did you take into account sequencing of an album and all that sort of stuff? Is it still something you care about? Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And the record that we did is sequenced for vinyl.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's got your
2 sides. And that's how I looked at it.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very different experience. Music is becoming a very different experience. I guess it's not, change is inevitable, and I call it change rather than progress, but because that's debatable. But there is progress. There are things that are easier to do and are cheaper to do, and there are things that aren't progress. And I think on balance, the issue is how do you find a way of making sure that artists can survive? Because it's important.
It's definitely There's only the very people at the top of the very tippy top of the pyramid are actually sustaining themselves at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, and you look at most of them; they are pre-streaming.
Yeah, they've got a foothold in beforehand.
Yeah.
Outside of music, got anything you're particularly passionate about outside of music?
My kids.
Yeah,
my family.
Yeah.
I don't have any other hobbies. No. I can bore you to death about Japanese salvage denim because that's my job.
Okay. Yeah.
But I wouldn't call it a passion.
No.
It's an interest, I guess. Yeah. I guess it's an interest.
Well, that's lucky if it's your job. It's
For me, like growing up when I did and being involved with what I was involved with, music and style, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Are intertwined.
Yep. Okay.
That whole coming out of the 60s the glam thing and the punk thing, obviously. I mean, the punk thing, the way you looked was incredibly important, and I don't think you can overestimate that.
Okay.
What we have now is a far broader palette of expression visually through clothing than existed in the mid-70s. So when I grew up in the mid-70s, everybody basically looked the same. You know, there's a real kind of prevailing brownness about everything. And to cut your hair short and cropped and to wear straight trousers and black and pink, you know, was incredibly violent.
Yeah.
In an incredibly violent expression back then. Now it's like, you know, you go in the bank and everyone looks like that. You know?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I fought in the trenches for, basically, you know.
Yeah.
So to me, they're very intertwined, and I think that's the reason why I am still interested in clothes and style and that expression is because it was a really big deal to look like we looked. A really big deal. And I got beaten to a pulp for it, like literally. Smashed to the, you know, beaten up at a gig in a rough part of town in Bristol, taken to hospital, you know. So yeah, it's incredibly, it was an incredibly important statement and a really, really like drew a line. You know, it drew a line, and that was the big difference between the punk scene in England and the punk scene everywhere else.
Okay.
Is that the clothes really drew a line.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the Ramones, and the Ramones had a great thing, and they were sharp as, you know, it was really sharp and really clever.
They had a look, but
But that New York punk scene, you know, it wasn't. There was stuff going on, there were clothes going on, and there were people like Richard Hell.
Yeah.
But you know, you look at Television, you know, fantastic band, but you know they weren't the Sex Pistols.
No.
You know, that look of the Sex Pistols was incredibly violent, and people took real offence, real offence. But we'd had glam rock before, so that theatricality, Bowie, you just studied mime and all of that kind of stuff. So theatricality in English music was always in the pot. Rather, Americans, like their glam rock was like, oh, that looks good over the pond, let's take a bit of that, Yeah. And there are obviously exceptions like the New York Dolls, but so yeah, I am interested in fashion and what it does and what it can mean.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. And just finally, any hopes and dreams for the future? Anything unachieved? Anything that you any bucket list items? Everest?
Not, to be honest, not really. I'm really happy where I am. I've thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm 65 now.
Yeah.
So my main aim within the industry is to keep playing as long as I can, because you really start to realise it will be finite.
Yeah.
And that's not a pleasant thought. So I try and stay fit.
Yep.
So that I can keep doing it as long as possible.
Yep.
I don't really have. I mean, one of the best things I did was about 12, 13 years ago. I stopped drinking.
Okay. Yeah.
And I wasn't, an alcoholic or whatever, but I like to drink.
Yep.
And I found that playing since I've been sober is so much more rewarding and so much more enjoyable. And it's really become a thing that really gives me a great deal of comfort and joy.
Yep.
And being in that moment. And I've heard it can be compared to surfing, or when you're Zen, it's a Zen thing.
Yeah.
So my main aim in life is to achieve that as often as possible.
Totally fair aim, I think. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Hopefully you never age out.
No, hopefully no.
Hopefully the 28 to 30 just keeps pushing back.
No, I'll just keel over.
You go on stage like that blues musician. Who was he? I can't remember.
Well, John Lee Hooker. Rolling Stones, 80. So I just hope. It's a really interesting place to be. Actually, is that I have no. It's not commercial.
Yep.
I mean, I don't do it for nothing.
Yep.
And no one should. But my main aim in that area musically, and actually pretty much in the rest of my life, is to achieve that state.
Yeah.
I'm not fussed about financial. I don't need a new car.
I think that's incredibly wise, actually, to be honest.
I think, David Bowie said the great thing about getting old is you become the man you always should have been.
Right.
And I think that rings true in a lot of areas.
Yep.
In my life now, for me, what I actually want out of life. Yeah.
That's really good to hear. That's excellent. Yeah. Can't ask for too much more than that.
No, not really.
Probably finish it on that note, I think.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your time, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Interesting chat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Well, that was our first ever episode of the Invisible Ink podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to Nick for being an incredible guest. He was very gracious and accommodating, and we're very, very grateful for his time and his openness during the chat. Be sure to check out his current band, the Feelerites, playing around Perth everywhere. Catch them live. Be sure to buy vinyl off him while you're there. You can check them streaming if you like. They're available on all the platforms. And look them up on Instagram as well to stay abreast of all their happenings. You can also catch Nick at Elroy Clothing, as he mentioned, on Beaufort Street in Mount Lawley, or online. Be sure to ask him about Japanese denim. He's got a passion. Please give us a follow also on the socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, and we always really appreciate your support. If you have any feedback, brickbats, bouquets, you can always send us gently worded emails at the Gmail. We really appreciate anything you have to say. Our next episode is a really interesting and sprawling chat with Paul Drake. Paul was a tour manager for many years, beginning in the US, working with the likes of Jimmy Eat World, At the Drive-In, the VSS, bands like that at the burgeoning stages of their careers early on, as they really took off, and later working with bands like the Mars Volta, the Get Up Kids, Red Sparrows, and just a huge list of many more. He's also an incredible photographer, even though he's not particularly fond of that title. And he actually has a book coming out, which we talk about, which features photos he's taken of lots of those aforementioned bands, plus the likes of Knapsack, Mineral, The Promise Ring, Boys Life, like an incredible array of bands. Paul was a very, very engaging and interesting guest. Please join us for that conversation. Last but not least, a massive shout out to Jake from Doomstone Productions for all his work on handling the recording, editing and production of these episodes. Incredible human, and if you need any work in this space whatsoever in audio and video, make sure you hit up Jake at Doomstone Productions. Thanks again for listening, and we hope to catch you next time. Cheers.